Shocking. Racist woman spits on Big Shaq, then this happened. Here's the first part of the introduction. Shocking. Racist woman spits on Big Shaq, then this happened. The neon glow of downtown Miami pulsed like the beat of a restless heart. South Beach, alive and unruly, was a cacophony of life. The laughter spilling out of rooftop bars, the bassline of distant reggaeton, and the occasional rumble of motorcycles tearing through the narrow streets. Among the hustle and bustle, Big Shaq, Shaquille Big Shaq Thompson, not the basketball legend, sat hunched over a plate of conch fritters at his favorite hole-in-the-wall spot, Maria's Eats. Big Shaq was a local legend. At 6'7" with the build of a freight train, his imposing figure turned heads wherever he went. Despite his size, he had an easy smile and a laugh that could break through the loudest crowd. A retired Marine and a part-time bouncer, Big Shaq had carved a reputation as both protector and peacemaker in the community. He didn't ask for trouble, but trouble often found him, like it did that night. Maria's Eats was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, and tonight was no different. The air inside was thick with the smell of frying plantains and grilled seafood. Regulars sat at their usual tables, sharing stories and joking with Maria herself, a stout Cuban woman with a loud voice and an even louder laugh. Shaq, at his corner table, was a fixture. Maria claimed the spot was unofficially reserved for him. He was mid-bite when the commotion began. The woman entered like a storm, dressed in a tailored white suit and heels that looked like they cost more than most people's rent. She swept in with an air of entitlement that immediately silenced the room. Her platinum hair was pulled into a severe bun, and her sharp features were set in a scowl that screamed disdain for everything around her. Maria approached her with a polite but cautious smile. "Buenas noches, señora. How can I help you?" The woman's eyes swept the room like a laser, narrowing as they landed on Maria. "I need something gluten-free," she said, her voice cold and clipped. Maria hesitated. "We don't have much gluten-free, but I can make." The woman raised a hand to cut her off. "Do you know who I am?" "I don't think you understand." "I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Make it happen." The room fell silent, the jovial atmosphere evaporating. Shaq watched from his corner, his fork paused midair. He'd seen her type before, a tourist who thought the world revolved around her. Maria, ever gracious, nodded. "Of course, señora. I'll see what I can do." The tension should have ended there, but it didn't. As Maria turned to the kitchen, the woman muttered something under her breath. It was low, but loud enough for those nearby to hear, a slur aimed directly at Maria's heritage. The air seemed to freeze. Conversation stopped, heads turned, and all eyes landed on the woman. Shaq felt the burn of anger rise in his chest. He didn't tolerate racism, not here, not anywhere. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady but firm, "you need to apologize." She turned to face him, her eyes widening as she took in his size. For a moment, it seemed like she might back down. But then she did the unthinkable. She spat. The room collectively gasped as the glob landed on Shaq's chest. For a split second, time seemed to stand still. Then, like a dam breaking, chaos erupted. "Get her out," someone shouted. Shaq didn't move, his gaze locked on hers. He could see the hatred in her eyes, the twisted satisfaction she took in her act. But he also saw something else, a flicker of fear. Before he could respond, Maria stepped between them, her small frame somehow exuding authority. "Out of my restaurant," she said, pointing to the door. The woman scoffed but didn't argue. She turned on her heel and marched out, her heels clicking against the tiled floor. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving a tense silence in her wake. Shaq sat back down, wiping his chest with a napkin. "You okay, Maria?" Maria nodded, though her hands trembled. "It's not the first time, Shaq. You know that. But it shouldn't happen here," he said, his voice low. "Not in our community." As the night wore on, the incident weighed heavily on Shaq's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over, that the woman's hatred was a storm that hadn't yet passed. And he was right. The next morning, a video surfaced online. Someone at the restaurant had filmed the incident, and the headline blared across every social media platform. Shocking. Racist woman spits on Big Shack. It went viral within hours, sparking outrage and debate. People demanded justice, while others dismissed it as just another internet controversy. But for Shaq and his community, it was personal. As reporters began to flood the streets, as protesters gathered outside Maria's Eats, and as the woman's identity was uncovered, a prominent CEO with political connections, the incident grew into something much larger. For Shaq, it wasn't just about what had happened in the restaurant. It was about what would come next. Because in the fight against hate, standing tall wasn't always enough. Sometimes you had to act.